first, let's make sure the audio is working. Let's, okay. As soon as this is working, let's see. I'm going to hear myself for a sec. Oh, it is working. Okay, guys. Audio working. Audio working. Audio check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Welcome to the live stream. Michael, Clint, Hunter, and we're live. We did it. We survived. Sounds great. Good, because it's just my phone, which is fun. It's been like a month since I did one of these. They're always nerve-wracking to do because I have to sit here and talk for 2 hours. I forgot to go to the bathroom before this one, so I'm going to have to pee here soon. So that's always exciting. There's 8 of you in here. That's perfect. All 8 of my friends have joined, just as expected. Hunter, your dad should be getting his Factory R like soon. Has he heard from anybody about that Factory R? You know, hey, it's Mark Honeycutt. What up, Mark? Funny that you say that, Clint. My neighbor has been playing very loud music, so we'll see if that continues or not. Mark, it's good to see you. You should come out to Utah sometime this summer, Mark. I think it would be fun to do some flying with you. What up from the UK? How you guys doing? Hey, everybody. This is like day number 3 of a live stream. I think yesterday was Paragliding Talk. The day before was the other live stream. And now today. Yeah, Mark, come on out to Utah, dude. Doors open, man. We'd love to have you out here. Maybe we could actually meet face-to-face for the first time. Plenty of internet interactions. Now it's time to actually meet you. Let's see, Josh. I would love to come to Salt Lake for some one-on-one training. Please be my guest, Josh. Come on out. Let's see. He tried to call Aviator today, but he finished work and weren't available. I'm stoked, though. They said it should be this month. I know they got Factory R's today. Hunter, so I'm sure his Factory R was included in that Factory R shipment that they got. What up, Elijah? How old am I? I'm 23. Mark, my Mav Max comes next week. I ordered it last week. It is coming in next week. I can't wait for it. Are you going to come fly it? You going to come make a YouTube video about it? I got a camper you could stay in. Let's see. What part of Utah am I in? I am in Lehi, Utah, which is about 30 minutes south of Salt Lake City itself. Just off Utah Lake, if you have any idea what that is. Yeah, Hunter, I'm stoked. Hello from Australia. Hey, Australia and Canada. Hello, Australia. What were you doing at Aviator? What was I doing at Aviator? I can tell you what I was doing. I can share the top secret info. What are the accommodations like when you're there for the 10-day course? We provide all the equipment for you to train on, but you are responsible for your transportation and a place for you to stay. Hello, taking my first SIV with Brad G this May. Any thoughts, suggestions? Only have 50 hours and am kind of nervous. Don't push yourself past what you feel ready for. It's very easy for you to go a little too far at an SIV, especially at 50 hours. I would say you're probably not ready for anything stall related, stalls, spins, helis, whatever. I doubt they're going to have you do that, but I'd probably shy you away from doing those things. Collapse the wing, do the wing overs, do the spirals, do those things, but maybe avoid the stalls. Let's see. Can't wait for the Mav Max review. You know what I'm more excited about than the actual review? I'm actually excited to get it. I am excited to get it, and I'm excited for Utah to bless us with some good weather. Today was snowing. Normally, it's nice weather by now. Normally, Utah is sprinkling in some 50-degree weather and saying, hey, what's up, and liking us. Now, it's like freezing and snowing, and it like hailed yesterday. It's craziness out there. I don't know what's going on. Utah needs to get their stuff figured out. Come on, Utah. But next weekend's supposed to look nice, sunny, and warm, so I'm excited about that. Racy Laser Jet. Are you looking to come to my training class? I could tell you more about the accommodations and where to go and stuff like that. Is the tow rope setup hard to figure out? I was hoping to fly yesterday, but that wall of rain was spooky. Are you local? Are you talking local? Tasty Bites. Nice name. If you're local, I probably would have shied you away from flying yesterday. Oh, you are, Bountiful. Yeah, I probably would have shied you away from flying yesterday. Maybe in the evening it was okay. I don't know. It didn't look that great to me. One thing I will tell you about Utah as well is the day before and the day after a big storm like today is usually pretty bumpy. I think it's like cleared up for a little while last night and looked pretty. Just because it looks pretty doesn't mean it is pretty. Tow rope setups are not that hard to figure out. If you have a good tow operator, which you will, then they're pretty easy. You just kind of inflate the wing and run, and then everything else is taken care of for you. Everything else is taken care of for you. I can't wait for the Mav Max, guys. I also have another paramotor coming this week. You guys want to know the other paramotor I have coming? It shipped out yesterday. This is going to be paramotor number 5 of my collection. I now have 5 paramotors. I have a problem. I don't have 5 wings anymore. But I do have a new PAP with a 140 prop on its way that I'm excited to try out. It got shipped out yesterday. And shout out Matt Minyard for sending that my way. I can't wait to give the PAP a try. Let's see, what is my favorite wing at the moment? I really like my Warp 2. My Dudek Warp 2 has been my favorite of all of the wings yet. I really liked my Viper XC, I really liked the Viper XC. And if I sold the Warp, it'd probably be a Viper XC. But Viper XC would probably replace my Warp, but I don't think I want to sell my Warp. I really like my Warp 2. Hunter, you're right. I need a factory R. But the problem is I don't have a personal unit is what I'm trying to say. My unit ends up being the school unit, which means if I had a factory R, I'd be putting students on a factory R, and I don't really want to put students on a factory R. And so I am not buying a factory R at least anytime soon. I'm still trying to build up my inventory of school units. You have fuel consumption numbers on that Warp 2 with a particular motor setup? I do. I was burning about 5, I think it was. 5 liters an hour with a Moster 185, 287, spinning a 140 Helix. Let's see. Spider 3 just got here. Hyped. Way to go, Hunter. Way to go, Hunter. I'm stoked for you. You're finally having a size that's a little more appropriate for you, Hunter. Let's see. I'm a 100-hour pilot. Can you suggest better and more playful? Currently flying an APCO Lift 2 EZ. Yeah, the Sirocco 3. The Ozone Sirocco 3 is probably a good move for you to transition to. That's normally what people switch to around 70 to 150 hours. Somewhere in that gap. Depends on how fast they progressed and how they flew in those 100 hours. I'm trying to get a top 80 with a 140 prop, striving for 2.5 liters an hour. Mark, you should just get a Nirvana F-Flight, dude. Nirvana F-Flight with a Warp 2, I don't think there's anything more efficient than that. I think the Nirvana definitely takes a cake for that. Because on the Adventure Wingman, we had a guy who was burning like 2.5 to 3 liters an hour the whole time. She is 14 grand, I think, which is a little bit on the pricey side. Also have fun when it breaks on who's going to help you fix it, because there's not a lot of people that can help you fix it. But if you're going for like pure, raw, best possible performance in terms of fuel efficiency, I don't think the Nirvana can be beat. And also, I don't think the Warp can be beat right now. I do think the Warp is probably the most efficient wing for just absolute cross country. Half price for top 80, lots of parts reliable. Maybe the top 80 is the way to go then. Maybe the top 80 is the way to go. You get like one less liter per hour and you have all the parts and it's easy to work on. I don't know, let me know. You guys are lucky down there at sea level. You know, the top 80 and Atom 80s up here in Utah just don't really work that well. I couldn't fly an Atom 80. I would not have enough lift. The buddy of ours that had an Atom 80 couldn't even climb up the 7,000-foot mountain near us, let alone the 10,000 foot Mountaineer S. He just didn't have enough power. It didn't lift. Even on like a 24 Gen, what was it? Vantage, I think it was, something like that. I don't know. He didn't have enough power. Hands off wing. What do you mean, Mike? What do you mean? I am going from regular brakes to a wingtip steering with 2 lines. How will turning control change? Your turns will be sharper. It'll happen faster and it will be easier. That's what's going to happen to your turns. And then you'll never go back to a wing without tip steer because tip steer is freaking fun. I love tip steer. I could never fly a wing without tip steer at this point. I don't think, I mean, I do. So I have an AWOC 3 that does not have tip steer, and I really, really miss my tip steer. Not having tip steer on that AWOC 3 definitely makes me less, it means that at times I'm having less fun. The difference is with tip steer, it doesn't, you don't get lifted in the turn. The turn, you know, when you pull that tip steer, it doesn't necessarily produce lift. It just brings the wingtip down. So you get a little bit more dive in the, you get a little bit more dive in your turns. What am I trying to say? I'm all over the place right now. But tip steer is more divey. Brakes are more lifty. That's what I'm trying to say. Hey, it's Matt. Matt, welcome to the chat. Welcome, Matt. Look at that. We've got the certified dad, as I call it. 2D is amazing. I'm sure I'll loop back to that, but I prefer 2D over anything else. When you're trying to play low near the ground, instead of climbing like this, you can typically stay a lot more flat and just bring the wingtip down, curve, bring the wingtip down, curve, bring the wingtip down, curve, versus like climb up like this, dive back down, climb up like this, dive back down. Okay, everyone sign up. Trevor's having training sale at 3146. Glad to see you. Welcome back to the chat. Glad you like your 2D, Michael. What's the next wing I'm going to try? Matt, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be trying a wing here for a little while. I've got motors that I'm trying. I've got a PAP that just got shipped to me. I have a Mav Max on the way. I want to try a Power 2 Fly. I think Guka's sending me another one to try because I didn't even really get to try it before I sold it. But I'm really going down the rabbit hole of trying motors right now. As far as wings go, nothing really has my attention right now. The RPM 2 is not really the right fit for me. And the RPM 1 is not the right fit. And the Viper XC is great, but I don't think I want to switch to it from my Warp 2. And then there isn't really anything that's catching my attention. I already had a Freeride 2. I have an AWOC 3. I don't really want a Snake 3. I would try a Gen Carve, but again, I don't think that's going to quite fit what I'm looking to do. So right now, I don't really have anything that I want to go and try. Open to trying things, though. Is the Warp 2 stable roll-in, roll oscillation to park the brakes for a decent amount of time? Yes, the Warp 2 does not actually, here's what I say about the Warp 2. The Warp 2 will slightly rock back and forth, but it will not build. So if you're flying and you hit some bumps and it starts this little rock, it'll kind of stay rocking ever so slightly, but it doesn't build. If you don't hit bumps and you're just flying straight and you don't weight shift, it'll stay flying straight. But, you know, you do get a little bit of that rock back and forth that you kind of have to cancel for. I will say, though, the little brakes that they attach next to the carabiners on the Warp 2 are like really, 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 really nice. And probably the most fun thing, because you just hook them with your thumbs right at the carabiners, and then you can just like tap that oscillation out back to the put them back on the magnets and you're done. It is a very hands-off wing. I will tell you, I think the Viper XC is a bit better of a hands-off wing. Like, there is no oscillation on a Viper XC. Whichever direction you point it, it goes and it stays going that way regardless. The Warp 2 just has a little bit of that rocking. Have you tried a Pulsar Skymax? Pretty dope motor. I have not yet tried a Skymax. That's also on the list of motors that I would like to try that I'm working up to getting. Somebody asked another question. Dang, how many motors do you have? I have 5 motors right now as soon as the other 2 get here. I have a Limitless sitting in a box. It's been in a box for like a month at this point. I really need to take it out and build it. Have you tried a U-turn Blackout or Morpheus? So I tried an original Morpheus, the OG Morpheus made back in like 2010. At my prior company, we had a size 11 and a size 8, and I used to kite those, but I never flew them because they were really, really beat up. I would love to try a Morpheus NG, I think is what it's called, but I haven't really done much acros, so it wouldn't be a great test, you could say, because all I would do is normal paramotor things. But at some point, I would like a Blackout, because I do want to get into acro. We can fly somewhere, Michael. I just know my Jeep will not make it consistent trips up to Sherwood. Nice. Hunter, you need to get that Jeep fixed. What is your advice for someone trying to get into midday flying soon? I mean, it's just turbulence tolerance, avoiding rotor. Thermals, you just have to build a tolerance for and an understanding of them and have active piloting skills. Rotor is the dangerous part. As long as you don't fly into rotor, then you should be good. And understanding your wing and how to keep that glider under control in those turbulent moments. Thanks, buddy. Excuse the spelling. It's late here in the UK. No problem, buddy. Never heard any more reviews from the magazine on a Dudek Solo. How's it hold up today for your first wing out of training to grow? The Solo is a pretty good post-training wing. It's a relatively fast and pretty agile beginner glider. I think it has 2D that you can tie in. I'm not 100% sure on that. It's one of those wings that when you get, you will keep for like the first 80 to 100 hours until you're ready to switch to something like a Sirocco 3 or a Nucleon 4 or something like that. I would say it and a Spider 3 are pretty close together in terms of how they compare. I think the Solo might be a little bit faster than the Spider 3 and might perform just a little bit more than the Spider 3. But it's probably just a touch harder to launch than that Spider 3. That's normally the trade-off that I've seen with Ozone versus Dudek, is that Dudek gets ever so slightly more performance, but you sacrifice the easy launch and landing. And Ozone, you get more, you get easier launches, easier landings, and, you know, depending on the wing, slightly less performance. It's hard to compare apples to apples because I feel like a Solo is not necessarily in the same category. Not necessarily in the same category as like a Spider, and like the Nucleon is not necessarily in the same category as like a Sirocco, and like the Drift Air is not necessarily in the same category as anything. So it's almost like they stuck them at different levels, if that makes sense. How many how flying would you recommend a pilot have before going to a Viper XC? Probably like 100 to 150 would be my recommendation. It does depend on the pilot. It does depend on the number of, well, it does depend on what you did in those hours. It depends on all of those things. How many hours before motoring Moustache? Probably like 300, Hunter. A lot. The Moustache is a lot to handle. Have I ever tried a Soul Wing? I have an Auster GT and never seen anyone else on one. No, I have never tried a Soul Wing. I was asked if I wanted to be a dealer recently. I think I said yes, but I've never tried any Soul Wings. They don't really have anything that interests me. I've got a pretty specific requirement at this point, which is part of the reason why I sold my Freeride 2. Soul Wings is decent on that subject for kiting. Interesting. Yeah, so I recently sold my Freeride 2. I'm sure maybe some of you guys knew that, some of you didn't. When I got it, it more closely aligned the type of flying that I was doing, which is the yank, bank, crank, spank, go up, barrel roll, loop, all those things. And once I kind of transitioned out of that, going more into the cross country here in Utah, the Freeride 2 just didn't necessarily align with that. So I sold that, and that's why I have my Warp 2, which better aligns with the cross-country, mountain landings, exploring, fly camping, stuff like that. Not that the Freeride 2 didn't do it, it just didn't do it quite as well. Is the Viper XC a daily wing or something you wouldn't get unless you're primary long-distance XC only? The Viper XC is probably one of the best daily wings for the average pilot. I would say if you're considering a Viper XC, you will be very, very happy if you get one. A tutor who tooted the flute tried to teach two young tutors to Okay, a nice one, Skylar. You almost got me to read the whole thing. I got halfway through it, okay? Good one, good one. I'm even a little dyslexic. I struggle to read and write sometimes. Soul wings are fun for kiting. I would be interested to try one. Can you crank on the Viper XC like the Freeride? Yes, you can. It doesn't roll quite as fast as the Freeride, but it does carry energy just like the Viper 5. So the Viper 5 and the Freeride are very comparable. The Viper being maybe a little bit less agile than a Freeride, but the Viper carries energy very well. The Viper XC also carries energy really, really well. You do have a little less roll rate on the Viper XC. Mark, I'll give you a free ride. Nice. I just want to say hi. Off to a Blazer game with the kiddos. Hey, Skylar. Soul, 2 feet and a heartbeat. Yeah, dude, the Viper XC is like everything I think most people will probably want. It's extremely straight flying. It's no oscillation. It's much more stable than you think. And it can do all of the things. It can do all of the barrel rolls. It can do all the wing overs. It can do all of those things. And when you let go, no matter where you're pointing, you stay pointing that way and there's zero oscillation. The Viper XC is sweet. Thank you to Neil for letting me fly his yellow one in the recent video if you guys watched us chasing the airboat. Ever flown a Gravity Defiant? Thoughts on the fuel tank being the main frame? Never flown one, but I'm not a huge fan of the gas tank being the main frame because if you break it or smack in or bend it, it's the whole thing that you have to replace. I don't have any experience with that, so I can't speak of if that's true or not, but that would be my impression. What is your opinion on pilots wanting to progress into wingovers? Currently doing baby-ish and want to get spicier. How many hours and what wing, Mason? How long have you been flying for? I have been flying since August of 2012. Hey, Trevor, sorry I'm late. Got caught up with my brothers. Tell everyone, can't wait to come down. Can't wait for you to come on down here, too. Love the Viper XC, but it wasn't quite as fast on full bar as I was expecting, like 44 miles an hour. Interesting. I didn't actually have a chance to push bar on the Viper XC. I wanted to. I was only able to put the trims out, and I was cruising at about 40, I think, trimmed all the way out. This is Shannon, by the way. I know who I'm speaking with, Sean. It's Shannon, but you put Sean in when you made your YouTube account. 44 is not bad. My guess is that a Viper XC will cruise mid to late 40s. 45-ish, all the way up to 48, depending on loading and depending on a couple other things. My Viper XC, or excuse me, my Viper 5 would maybe get 48, I think is what I was cruising at on my Viper 5. My Freeride 2, I was cruising at like 53. And then my Warp 2, I could be off a little bit on that 53. 51 to 53, somewhere in there. Might have been 51. And then my Warp 2, I'm cruising at like 50 to 53, somewhere in there. It's really freaking fast. 65-ish on a 24 Pegasus, but don't really want to change wings. I want to see how far I can push this one. Steps to getting into wingovers. That one's, I haven't fully figured out that part yet. I'm not really sure on exactly what I recommend for getting into wingovers and how to improve your wingovers. The best thing you can do is go to somebody who's really good at them and have them help you. Like if you came out to Utah, I would happily help you improve those wingovers. There's plenty of other people that would too. As far as like baby stepping it yourself, I'm not 100% sure on what I would recommend for that. Obviously, the first thing you should know how to do is burn energy off. And the second thing is you should learn how energy gets built. Any concerns with burning 100 LL gas for your motor? Some of the small airports only have 100. Lead is not necessarily the best. I would say it's not the end of the world. I mean, on the Adventure Wingman trip, I had avgas, I had 89, and I had 91 in my gas tank at one point, and I had 4 different oils at the same time. So I had 3 different fuels and 4 different oils with 2 different types of oil and 4 different mixture rates. It was a lot. It was a lot. The motor didn't really care. Viper trimmed in speed. I didn't trim it all the way in, but I think I was cruising at about 33 miles an hour. Trim's neutral, Mark. Ever tested a 4-stroke EOS? Nope, I've never tested a 4-stroke EOS. I think 4-strokes are a cool idea for trikes, but I don't think they're a great idea for foot launch, at least not yet. How would you best classify the biggest difference between the Nucleon 4 and the Warp 2 and the new Viper XC? Okay, so Nucleon 4 is several levels below both the Warp 2 and the Viper XC. The Nucleon 4 is like an intermediate 100-hour pilot wing. The Warp 2 and the Viper XC, the Viper XC is a little bit more tame. I mean, you can start to get into that at like 150 hours. The Warp 2, it's suggested that you're at like 200 to 300 before you touch a Warp 2. So I wouldn't say that it's fair to compare the Nucleon to those two. But I will say the Warp 2 and the Viper XC are very comparable. Warp 2 is probably a little bit faster. Warp 2 is also a little bit more, I want to say it's a little bit more efficient. I haven't tested it. It probably performs a little bit better, but it's not as easy to launch as a Viper XC. Is the Viper XE faster than the Flux? Yes, it is faster than the Flux. Got to use what you can get. What's next after the Iris? A Mav Max and a PAP. Both are already on their way. The PAP got mailed yesterday, and I think the Mav Max gets mailed next week. The Iris is actually going to go up for sale, probably in a couple of weeks after I get my Mav Max. If anybody is interested in my Iris, it's got roughly 20 hours on it. Please reach out to me, and I'd happily help you. Let's see. Rotary engine in Parajet Explorer is pretty cool. They have some really cool paramotors. If you go watch their Tucker's tour of their factory and see all their cool paramotors, that would be cool. Or they have a lot of cool stuff in that tour. Sorry, I'm trying to do 2 things at once. I got to slow down. I bet he gets a Scout next. Are you talking about me, Hunter? I'm not going to... maybe I get a Scout next. We'll see. I can't wait for you to come to the advanced training as well. 2 feet and a hot beat. This May is looking good. I think we have 4 already signed up. I take 5 in that advanced training, so there's 1 spot left. I had a PAP Tionics. I can't even say that. Why am I selling the Iris? Good question. I am selling the Iris because I can't own 5 paramotors at the same time. I can own 4, but not 5. I know I said Scouts months ago, and then things happened, okay, Hunter? I'm working on the Scout, but also I'm selling the Iris because I'm trying to fly everything. I'm trying to fly all the things, and I can't own all the things to fly all the things. I had to sell a bunch of my wings as well. I went a little bit heavier on personal stuff over the winter when I wasn't running classes. Now that I'm going to start running classes again, I need to reinvest some of that capital back into training equipment, and so it must come out of personal things and go into training things. Coming to Endless Foot Drag this year? I think so. I think I am coming to Endless Foot Drag this year. I'm not 100% sure yet. I'm not confirmed, but I did schedule my September class with the expectation of going to Endless Foot Drag. I went back in 2019, and I think I need to go again. Keep up the content. Thank you. I will keep up the content. Matt, Soldier Scout last weekend. Wow, that took a little while, Matt. Now I can finally pay for my free ride too. Nice. I almost bought a Scout last week, but it's in Maine and the guy won't ship. You had any thoughts about visiting the UK? Maybe next year. This year, I don't have a lot of free time. This year is building. This year is getting my foot, firmly planted with the business. This year is focus on business things, not necessarily personal fun trips. So Endless Foot Drag might happen, but I don't think any East Coast fly-ins are really going to happen. I would love to go to the one that they have out in Georgia, Bad Apples, but I just don't think I'm going to be able to pull that off. I remember 2019. I believe it was the year my uncle went up in 25 miles an hour wind. It sure is. I remember. Love you, Trevor. Sending love from California. Fantastic. Thank you. How's your super training with Dell compared to training you provide now? Seems like a nil-win training helps more than laminar beach wind 24/7. It does. The training I do here in Utah produces better all-around paramotor pilots than the training did down in Texas. Yes, Hunter said it best. The curriculum is much, much better than super training. We also have a very good structure now. Hunter, you should come back because things have definitely improved since your class in August. And I have a pretty good team. A lot of the people who used to help me at my prior training class are now coming and helping me here. This coming class, I think there's 5 instructors that are going to be helping out there with 6 students. I have 6 students signed up for our April training class. So things are busy, man. 6 students, 5 helpers, and 3 more people floating in. There's going to be 15 of us out there in April. So let's hope for some good weather, guys. Let's hope for some good weather. Let's see. Probably a bit harder to train standing on a pole when winds aren't 20. It is absolutely harder to train standing on a pole when winds aren't 20. You are correct, Kevin. I'm a 200-hour pilot doing all the wingovers, barrel rolls, comfortable flying in thermals / turbulence. Would there be anything I'd gain from your advanced class? Well, Tim, that's completely dependent on what you would like to learn. We could probably help improve wingovers and barrel rolls. Everybody can improve on those, including myself. I don't think anybody does them quite perfect. I don't think perfect is even possible, except maybe Judson and maybe Tucker. They both do pretty good ones. But I'd be happy to help you with those. We could go mountain flying. We could go fly camping. We could go on longer XC flights. I could teach you what I learned on the Adventure Wingman. The choices are up to you. It's completely dependent on what you would like to learn, if there is anything that you would like to learn. My slew of knowledge, whatever that is, would be at your disposal. Glad to see me live. Hey, Frank. How you doing, Frank? Good to see you. Did you get that old paramotor all started up and flown yet, Frank? I know you got that mounting plate, what, a year ago? Year and a half ago? You got to get that thing out and flying, Frank. It's about time you get flying. If you haven't flown yet, Frank, then you should come to Utah and do some flying. Also, to loop back to Hunter real quick. Hunter, if you're listening to this, when are you going to come back to another class? I would love to see you and your dad come back to another class, maybe at separate times, maybe at the same time. I'm not sure. That's up to you. But I would love to see you guys come on back to the old backcountry PPG training class. My Jeep has been stalling because of some electrical stuff, so I haven't been on the freeway in a minute. But if I get a run-in again, I'll come to Utah. You got to get a run-in, okay? You got to come back to Utah, Hunter. Because, listen, if you come back to Utah and you spend some more time with us, Hunter, we'll make you so good as fast as we can. We'll go do all of the fun things because I know you're capable of it. And so we will help teach and improve you and make you a good pilot so we can go do fun things. Let's see. Got it broken and then the pole starter broke. Frank, how'd you break the pole starter breaking it in? Send me some pictures, Frank. Reach out to me because you might have installed it wrong. You might not know how to start the MY22s because there is a different technique to it. I would highly suggest knowing that technique, so please reach out to me, Frank. I'd be happy to tell you. Am I drinking moonshine? No, this is water. This is pure water. I'm going to have to pee before long. Let's see. I'm also drinking this Izzy sparkling apple. Maybe you guys can see that. The reflections are bad. In case you were wondering, maybe you weren't. Maybe you were. I'm at the beach near an airport. How are the advertisement planes allowed inside Class C airspace? They probably request permission in advance and have a working agreement. That's probably why. Caleb, welcome. I enjoyed doing that Q&A with you, or that podcast. I don't even know what to call it. The other day with you. I gotta set up my own podcast where I interview people. I think that would be entertaining. This is kind of like a podcast. It's an open forum. Ask me questions and I answer. But maybe I got to do a podcast where I interview people like yourself, Caleb, because I know you're a slew of information and you have some really good hair, and we got to chat about it. Let's see. Back on track. I can already do pretty big wingovers. My question now is, when you go for barrel rolls, how do you keep the outside from deflating if you aren't supposed to use outside brake? You are supposed to use outside brake in a barrel roll. Actually, breaking down a barrel roll is probably a good idea because I hate seeing people do them wrong. They're really simple. The They're actually easier than wing overs as well. Barrel rolls are really a simple and easy maneuver. The only thing is it usually has a lot of energy. So to explain barrel roll in the most simplest form, and I plan to make a video about this, okay, and use diagrams and a whiteboard and stuff, is it's basically a 360 turn, but inverted. That's all it is, okay? And so to learn barrel rolls, as you're coming down, you're building energy, and you pass the gate, right? This is bottom, where now you're flying flat. As you go up, you then pull, and you do just a 360 turn that sends you over the top. If you pull before the bottom, what happens is you just do a 360 spiral facing the ground. See the difference? And so you have to wait until you pass the gate and are going up to actually go over top. Now, it's important when you are doing this barrel roll that you have enough energy, because if you go too high and you pull into it and you don't have enough energy, you will go light on the lines just like Kevin did at Salton Sea, and you'll end up having to throw a reserve. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Hello? Do you guys still see me? Oh, no. Oh, you still see me? You still seeing me over here? Because I'm watching me on the computer to see if I'm freezing or not. So that's good to know. Okay, so back to the barrel rolls, right? And then I'll continue on. When you're learning a barrel roll, it's best to actually enter before you reach the gate. So all you're doing is a 360 spiral, because you're at a lot less risk just doing a straight down 360 spiral quickly than you are actually going up and playing with energy and unloading and twisting and stuff like that. Does that make sense? And so you need to build a lot of energy. And then as you pass the bottom, you just pull. And as soon as you start to go, you have to touch that outside brake. You should never, ever, ever take a tib collapse or a little flutter when you're upside down. If you do, you absolutely have no business doing barrel rolls. That's my thought. If you watch somebody do a barrel roll and they're outside flutters, they should not be doing barrel rolls. They should go back to wing overs. They don't understand energy. They don't know how to build it. They don't know how to use it. They don't know how to burn it. That's my thoughts. Let's see. Let's go back. You need to be on Paramotor Podcast. Oh, so I am going to be on Anthony Velo's Paramotor Podcast probably this weekend or next week, by the way. Everybody go yell at him and tell him to get filming already. I think we're waiting on something. Let's see. And what would you consider a swoop landing? I thought it was landing almost mid-turn, but then some videos I see don't even see the case. Okay, I'll loop back to that in just a second. Is this all working? Chris, how you doing, Chris? Welcome. Boaz, it's good to see you. I've got bad news for you, Boaz. I sadly sold that Skyflux. I sadly sold your Skyflux. But a swoop landing. Okay. Is there a new acro move that you're working on? I'll get to that in just a second, Caleb. A swoop landing is, to me, it's anything where you build a lot of energy, dive at the ground, and you exit that dive at the ground and turn it into a big long foot drag. So like the most simple swoop landing and easiest swoop landing is actually you're at like 50 feet, you're flying, you pull a bunch of brake, you dump throttle and throw your hands up, it dives you at the ground like this, you miss as you're floating, you pull brake and land. Caleb did one of those at Salton Sea. Caleb, you should leave a comment about what that was like doing that for the first time. That's how you start to learn swoop landings. It's like this pull, throw your hands up, it dives you at the ground. Learn what that dive is, bring that dive slowly closer and closer to the ground to where as you're coming down, you just miss it and start foot dragging. That's the start of a swoop. Then a true swoop is where you do a big turn, whether a 360 or a 180, and as you exit that turn, you burn that energy into a big long foot drag to landing. That's like a true swoop, you could say. I mean, the term swoop comes from skydiving, where they'll come in on this little tiny canopy and they'll spin 8 times and then miss the ground barely and foot drag into a big long landing. It's basically what we're doing, only I, start teaching it by like pulling some brake and throwing your hands up and causing that dive, starting that dive kind of thing. Does that make sense? Am I still here? Maybe I'm still here. Okay. All right. Let's see. Next thing. Caleb, is there a new acro move that I'm working on? No, there is not a new acro move that I am working on. I am pretty satisfied with all the acro moves that I do now. I'm not really working on any new acro moves. I would love to get into stalls and spins and helis, but I have yet to do so. I'll get on Anthony's butt about it. Very good. Thank you. Tell him to get to filming with this the podcast thing. Got some light coming in. Should I wait for my first lesson to kite on my own, or should I just go for it now? Wait until you go to a training class and actually get a little bit of kiting instruction and then proceed to do it yourself. Don't try and go out and kite yourself before you've received any instruction. Otherwise, you're probably going to make mistakes that your instructor is going to have to teach out of you. No power loops for you. I am too heavy for power loops. I would enjoy a power loop, but in order for me to power loop, I probably need to come down to like 170, and I'm currently at like 180 pounds. Anthony Vella, how you doing, Anthony? I'm excited to film that podcast with you. I did get the little the little microphone thing you told me to get, and I'm excited to have a conversation with you. Let's see. Should I wait for my first lesson? I'm 110 kg, 220 pounds, and I have mastered my forward and nil wind launches. Alrighty, way to go, Jack. No power loops, correct. No, haven't tried barrel rolls yet. Just want to know more information about the maneuver before going for it. Well, I hope this kind of gave you some of that information. Hey, sorry guys, the girlfriend stepped in and said, hey. Right on, brother. Let's plan on recording it this weekend. Let's do it. The swoop landing is move more than just a foot drag to landing. When you apply brake, then hands up, you drop and then apply brake slowly while sliding forward on the ground. It is super freaking fun. Anthony, yes, let's do it, buddy. Let's do it. And let's ask all the juicy questions. Zupas is too good for you. Boaz, hey man, I gotta stay away from that Zupas if I'm gonna power loop, all right? I haven't actually had Zupas since John came to town a little while ago. I try and avoid Zupas except for when you guys are here now. When are you going to have a kiting class? Good question. I want to go down to the beach in Texas again, maybe in Galveston, and run just a kiting clinic. I think that would be a lot of fun, but that's a long ways away from me. I got a friend who's almost 400 pounds. Any frame that might work for him? Maybe. It depends on how he holds his 400 pounds. Make sure Anthony puts the recording out. Anthony, make sure you put the recording out. Thanks for the info. Really appreciate it. You betcha. Always happy to help. A foot launch frame. Again, it does depend on how the homie carries his weight. Hell yeah, Trevor on the Paramotor podcast. I'm excited about it. Maybe one of these days I'll make it on Paragliding Talk as well. I know I was supposed to go on a couple years back and then he canceled, and I have yet to be re-asked to go on. I just like talking. I want to go talk. I like the little banter back and forth between you two. It's kind of fun. What kind of tent and sleeping bag do you recommend for fly camping? As light as you can, Caleb, as light as you can. I can send you a link to the Amazon listing of the ones that I use. He's a fireman and a tall, big farm boy. Right. Does he carry a lot of weight in the center? Like, is he a very wide guy or is he just a tall and large guy? Because it depends on if he's going to actually fit into a frame or not. If he's like super round at the center, then he might not fit into a frame. But if he's a little bit longer and not, then it makes a difference. Tall, large, I'm not sure what to tell you. But I will tell you that the Limitless frame does widen. And so you can probably widen that thing all the way up to like 20 inches, 22 inches. And he might be able to fit in that. I have a 350-pound guy coming in one of my classes coming up. Let's see, 320-pound guy is coming in one of my classes, and he's going to use a Limitless without any problems. That's the frame that can kind of sort of fit bigger guys. You just want swing arms that are more than 16 inches wide. The average swing arm is about 16 inches wide. You want something that's a little bit wider than that and or can be widened, and that is one thing that the Limitless can do. Yeah, I'm super lucky, guys. The neighbor was blasting super loud music all the way up until 30 seconds before I started this, and they haven't started their music again. Super stoked about that. Super stoked about that. And it's also very sunny and late. I forget the time change has made a big difference here. It's actually sunny until like 7 o'clock. No, what happened? What do you mean, what happened? What happened where? What happened with what? What are you talking about? Now, what am I, what? What's the secret to doing a wingtip track correctly? Actually, I should really make a video about how to do a wingtip drag correctly. Not because I want to encourage people to do wingtip drags, but because if you don't do them correctly, it can be super dangerous. So let me explain the proper way to learn how to do a wingtip drag. Okay, this is something I have had to teach a couple people now because nobody really knows how to teach wingtip drags. And when I learned how to do wingtip drags, I worked really hard to figure out how to reteach it. So let me show you guys how to do a wingtip drag. Yo, what up, Tony? How you doing? What the heck is going on? I'm not entirely sure. Okay, so let's talk about wingtip drags. All right, let's look at this as a circle. Let's look at this as a circle. Here is, let's now cut it into fourths, right? So we have 4 quadrants of a circle. What you want to do is you want to start up here and you want to dive down and barely miss the ground at this part of the circle. I should really draw a circle. Let me see if I can draw a circle. I got a notebook. Okay, wingtip dragging 101 real quick for you guys. Uh-oh, wrong pen. Okay, wingtip dragging 101. Ready? We're going to start here. And what we're going to do is you're going to be flying this way, going this direction. You will then dive at the ground and barely miss the ground here. As you barely miss the ground, you're going to just do like a big kind of 180 dive at the ground. As you barely miss the ground here, you need to turn and pull the wingtip down to touch somewhere between like right here and right here. What's going to happen when you pass the ground right here? When you pass the ground right here, it's going to lift you away from the ground. So you actually have to pull against the lift to the ground. And if you touch between like here and here, you will be very far away from the ground. And the wingtip will be on the ground and it'll be super safe. And then you exit the wingtip drag by about here and are flying straight and away this way. Just like that, okay? Now, what a lot of people do is they start here and they dive and they turn and they turn and they turn and they turn and then they like barely touch the wingtip over here. The problem with over here is your body is actually very close to the ground when you're all the way over here. Your body is very far from the ground over here because this is right after you built the most energy, and now you can turn that energy into the wingtip drag where your body will float away and the wingtip drag will float into the ground. Over here, what's happening is you're just bringing you and the wingtip down very close to the ground. If you exit going this way or this way, you will probably hit some rotor. Ideally, you exit somewhere on that path there. If you exit going this way, you're going to hit some pretty nasty rotor as you go up, and you're going to go light and then hit rotor, and it can be not very pleasant. So if you are not exiting and flying straight away at this point, actually carry it around again. That way you don't go light as you're passing through your rotor right here. Okay? Now, the starting point going this way, you want to be into the wind. If there's a lot of wind, it matters. If there's not a lot of wind, it doesn't matter as much. So you start here, facing this way, dive, barely miss the ground. As you go float away from the ground, you need to pull that wingtip down and touch again between this point. After you've touched, pull away, kind of straighten out and fly away this way. If you don't exit going this way, carry it around again for another half circle or so and exit going this way. Okay, there's your wingtip drag 101. Did that make sense, Caleb? Did that make sense for you guys? I think I'm a solid minute or so ahead here. I'm not entirely sure at this point. Let's see. You should redo the world record wingtip drag on something other than a flat top and a Dominator. I would have done that this year. I also would have reset the circle foot drag record. I had every intention to, and we just never had the conditions. In order to really do that, you have to have really smooth ice on the lake, and the lake completely frozen over, and we didn't have that opportunity this year. If the lake is iced over and it's a very flat, smooth ice, you could do as many circle foot drags as you want. Well, actually, circle foot drags don't work on perfect ice, but you can do as many wingtip drags as you want and just hold it around and around and around and around. If it's ice and then become a little bit of snow on top, then you can do the circle foot drags. I never had the conditions for it. Could maybe do that on some other surface, but snow is really the best because you can kind of slide through it. So if you screw up and drag the cage, it doesn't really matter. Let's see. What's next? You should get a tiny paramotor so you can actually hold the wing and motor so it's easier for your examples. I totally agree. I should totally get one. Take a drink every time you say foot drag or wingtip. I'll take a lot of drinks then. I apologize if I say those a lot. Caleb, I'm glad that kind of made sense. Nobody should really attempt a wingtip drag. I think wingtip drags are stupid. I'll do them, but I'm hesitant to do them anymore. I think it's unnecessary risk to go do a wingtip drag. But I will say, I will at some point make a video about it, because if you're not explained it and you don't understand the timing, then you could be trying to wingtip drag when you have the least energy and your body gets super, super close to the ground. That's that. The best way to learn it is on glare ice. Perfect layer of ice, and it doesn't matter if you screw up the timing, you just glide across the ground and fly away. Matt H here. Hello from the north. Hey, Matt. How you doing? Welcome to today's live Q&A number 7. I can't believe I've done 7 of these. I did actually buy lights specifically for these live streams so you can see me. Fun fact, I finally got all my pictures hung up after a month of waiting to do so. I didn't want to annoy the neighbors, so here's all my cool pictures for the background of my live streams. I like them. I think it adds a little bit. Santa Croce has a good video on his wingtip drag. His wingtip drag crash or his wingtip drag? Maybe, I don't know about said. Chris Santa Croce wing tip drag. I actually went to Superfly today. Wing overs, I will have to browse through here for a minute and try and find that. But I would enjoy to watch that. Yeah, I went to Superfly today and hung out with Turtle for a little while, as well as a couple other of the guys there, and bought some carabiners. Thank you, Superfly, for the carabiners. Santa Croce has a good video on his wingtip drag. I would love to know a little bit more about what happened when he crashed. Also, what's your thoughts on these pilots trying rocket loops? I think rocket loops are extremely dangerous, and the room for error on rocket loops is very, very, very thin. And if you screw up the rocket loop and you don't have enough energy, you will go gift wrapping. You will get gift wrapped in the wing, and that is not a very good situation, and the chances or your success in getting out is not great. And if you don't get out of the gift wrap, we all know what happens. So I think it's super, super risky, and it's kind of that uncharted territory where people don't know how far they can take it, as in like how small of motors can you do it on, and how heavy can you be, and what size of wing can you do it on. Most everybody doing it is doing it on the big engines with little tiny wings, taking a lot of energy, and they're like super deep in brakes while they're doing it. So I don't know. I would love to do one, but I do see the risk in them, and I'm not sure if the risk is worth it. If I weighed 20 pounds less and had a 300cc engine, maybe I would try it. If I had a Plini 303 and I was 160 pounds, then yeah, I'd probably try one. And if I had a 14 Freeride 2 or a 15 AWOC 3, which I don't have either. So I don't know. I could probably get away with it on my 17 AWOC 3. But I'd be the first one doing it on a 17 AWOC 3. I don't know. It seems like an additional risk that's unnecessary to me. Crash, the dangers of it. Yeah, I would be interested in watching Chris's video about that, because I know that he got pretty good. He got messed up pretty good there on that wingtip drag. It's an unnecessary risk. You know, wingtip drag is cool, super fun, but it's high risk, and you are playing with the ground. Have you ever had to throw a reserve? No, I've never had to throw a reserve. It does not look fun. What, the power loops don't look fun? I think they look cool to do once and have a video of it and say you did it, but I don't think to me, they don't look like something I want to go do every single day. Do you usually enter a barrel roll from a spiral, asymmetrical spiral, or wing over? Normally just from a wing over. But I fly efficient enough wings where I could basically rock back and forth and then flick into a barrel roll. Again, a barrel roll is really just a 360 spiral, but inverted. It's a 360 spiral inverted instead of face down. You could do a barrel roll, you know, with like no energy. You'll just basically do a 360 facing the ground. Like a really good barrel roll where you have a lot of energy and you use it correctly and you actually go over the top, that you need to do a big wing over and give yourself lots of time to build energy before you flick it into the barrel roll. Also, a really good barrel roll, after the barrel roll, you stop. Then you can go into another one, but you stop. If you see somebody who throws a barrel roll and they just spin around a couple times, they were lacking a bit of control. A good barrel roll, you stop after just the first spin. You know, you do it, you stop, you build some energy, you do it again, versus just twist, twist, twist. My pen is getting spun all around. Apologize about that. Let's see. And you can do a barrel roll from a spiral. You can do it from asymmetrical spiral. You can do it from any of those things. It's just about having enough energy. I normally don't do a barrel roll. If I'm going to do a barrel roll, I try and do a wing over or something where I go straight down to build the energy before I spin into it. I try not to enter into a barrel roll slightly sideways. You just don't have all the energy that you could have. I think more manufacturers will incorporate the mustache features or adapt it to true paramotor wings. I don't know. The mustache, I call it the mustache. I don't know if it's actually called a mustache. But the mustache to me is a cool thing that you use once every now and then, but realistically would rarely ever use. Except for in paragliding, except for in speed flying, that's a different case. For paramotoring, if I lived on the beach, I would probably use it regularly. Here in Utah, I would probably never use the mustache motoring. Any insightful info you can provide on your knee gimbal camera setup? Actually, Judson Graham did a great video showing exactly how to make said knee gimbal camera setup. Chris, I was not doing a wingtip drag. No, you was not. Not worth the risk. You right. Wingtip drags are not necessarily worth the risk. Plan on stopping by Yellowstone on the way to your class. What do you think is a must-visit area in Utah around you? I think there's some really fun things south of me. I think Moab is worth a visit. I think Hanksville is pretty cool if you want to go paramotoring there. Moab is not necessarily... Moab can be hard to find good paramotor LZs. And you don't want to go piss off the people who live here in Utah who fly Moab regularly. So I'd say maybe stay away from motoring Moab, but go visit Moab. Motor Hanksville. There's endless space and nobody is there. Where do you go full throttle before the barrel roll? So I do full throttle on all my wingovers. As soon as I start my wingovers, I'm full throttle, and I hold that full throttle until I'm done with my wingovers. That also includes barrel rolls. If I'm doing barrel rolls, I hold the full throttle the entire time. I'm never on, off, on, off. I am on and I hold and I don't let off until I'm done. And, you know, the thing that I say about throttle in wingovers is it's like adding nitrous. If you are not prepared to handle additional energy, don't add throttle in your wingovers. Understand the energy, timing, and how to do it all, then incorporate the throttle. But don't incorporate the throttle before you're ready for the throttle. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? I think somebody's coming to my advanced training in May wanting to learn barrel rolls. It is something I do help people with if you guys want help learning those things, as well as wingovers. Caleb, if you're still watching, I helped Caleb down at Salton Sea with his wingovers. Caleb could leave a comment about, you know, if it helped him or not. I just want to help as many people as possible. Yeah, Aaron, I thought it was you. I wasn't entirely sure. 2 feet and a heartbeat is coming to learn barrel rolls. And it's not a loop. It's not a loop. It's a barrel roll. A loop is technically the power loop. A power loop is technically just a loop. A barrel roll is this over sideways. A loop is, you know, a front flip kind of thing. If we're talking about terminology here, that's the proper terminology. The proper terminology. All right. Well, look, we've been going for an hour and 1 minute. That's pretty good. You guys stay tuned for a full hour and 1 minute. In other news, I've got some fun classes already scheduled. We are busy as busy gets over here in Utah. We've got 6 students already signed up for our April class. We've got, I think, 5 already signed up for our May class. And I think 4 in June, 2 in August, 1 in September already signed up. We have a lot of people already signed up for our training classes out here. That was just the beginner classes. That was not the advanced classes. Those are also quite full. I'm grateful for all the business this year. I'm excited to help teach more pilots. I'm looking forward to it. In completely other news, I'm seeking out land that can be turned into a paramotor airport out here in Utah. Don't want to say too much about that right now, but there is some exciting things in the works. I'm trying to find a place where I can make it flat, put a hangar and a lot of other things and make it fun. I want paramotor airport kind of thing in the middle of nowhere. Let's see. For sure, the timing talk and what to look for in the barrel roll was a great blueprint. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad that was helpful. Are you talking about right now, Caleb, or are you talking about before? When is the best time frame to train there with respect to the weather? Normally, starting in April, things get really, really good and stay good all the way until November. October is kind of the end of the good season. November, it starts to kind of get a little bit more rough. This year, with all the snow, actually, it's supposed to get really warm going into next week. And so I think this year, starting in April, it's going to get good. Personally, May is my favorite time. May is my favorite time of year here in Utah. Same with like September and October. So like early spring and late fall are my 2 favorite times just because it's a little cooler and I can still fly a little bit later into the day and a little earlier in the evening without the bumps. I don't mind the bumps. You can fly midday, but if you can, you know, why? It's just extra bumpy. But yeah, those are usually my favorite times. I would say if you're looking to come to a class, I try to only schedule them when it's good weather. Let's see. I wish I was closer to advanced, but I'm in a whole different continent in a third world country, and I'm kind of pioneering wingovers and stuff over here. Well, I wish you luck. I wish you luck with your pursuit of learning wingovers. I'm here to help you however possible. Okay, tell us why you were at Aviator. All right, I'll tell you guys why I was at Aviator. If you don't know, I spent a week down there at the beginning of this month. There were some cool videos, including the one where we chased a flying boat. I'm sure you guys saw that on my channel as well as their channel. I think they posted that last week. I posted me chasing the boat. It was a lot of fun. I was asked by a couple of people out there at Aviator, aka the guy who kind of sort of owns it, Eric, to come help with their ground handling videos. So I was out there to do that. That's all I will say. I think it's top secret. I'm not entirely sure. I kind of built it up as a little bit of a top secret thing. I'm not sure if it's really a top secret thing, but I was out there helping film a ground handling video with them. Do I fly tandem? Mark, I am currently not flying tandem, but I will be getting into tandem flying going into the spring and summer. I would love to get a tandem trike, but I don't think I can justify the price quite yet for it. I don't have the time availability to run tandems to pay for said trike. And so I don't think it would be worth it quite yet for me to have a big trike. I am selling tandem spreader bars now. If you guys are interested in tandem spreader bars, I do have those available, and I plan to keep one of those sets for myself and use to take my girlfriend up again, who I haven't taken up in a long time. What's your top 3 playlist when you go flying? Blue jazz music. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I have all sorts of music that I listen to. I do like blue jazz music, though. Jazz music, for some reason, is something that I just enjoy, whether I want to admit it or not. Bro, anytime you need a tandem trike, come visit. Braden, I would love to use your tandem trike. I think you are still due to come down here and fly my AWOC 3, wouldn't you say? See ya, Mark. Do you consider the rider weight when you buy a wing? Do you consider the rider weight? Do you mean the tandem passenger weight? If you're looking for the all-up weight of a tandem wing, there are a few extra things that you do need to calculate in. Reach out to me, Mark. I'd happily help you with that one. I want to take my girlfriend up. Do I need a tandem cert? You do need a tandem certification legally to take people up on tandem flights. I would suggest that you receive your tandem certifications. I weigh 180. I am to become an instructor administrator this summer. I've already spoken with Noah with the USPPA to become a tandem instructor administrator, which means I'll be able to run and host tandem instructor classes and help sign people off with their tandem rating as well as with their instructor ratings, which will be very fun. So if you're looking in the later half of this year to get your tandem certification and or to get your instructor certification, I will probably be able to help you out with that. When will you be offering quick release for harnesses? Probably a month, Caleb. Probably mid to late April. I need to get a harness, which was supposed to be shipped to me this week, to prototype, to then make content about, to then promote said quick release, and also to allow the guy who does it to kind of play with it and mess with it a little bit. But I didn't ever get a tandem, or I didn't ever get a harness this week, so I was not able to do that. Yeah, I actually weigh closer to 190, Mark. I'm trying to be nice to myself because I'm in the process of losing weight. But I have a little bit of muscle mass and a little bit of fat, so I weigh 180 to 190. I'm a bigger guy. I'm not little like Tucker and Judson and Josh McGee, all the little tiny 135 soaking wet guys. I don't know how they're freaking that small. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a big guy. I'm only 5'9", 180 to 190 pounds. I would say that's a relatively average size. But I am trying to find that video of Chris Santacroce's wingtip drag, and I want to hear a story from Santacroce about spirals. No, I'm looking for the wingtip drag. Wingtip drag? Maybe? I don't see it. I don't see it. But I will tell you, I've almost eaten it several times on wingtip drags. Highly suggest against them if you're looking to do wingtip drags. Anyways, guys, well, what are your guys' final questions? I've already been at this for about an hour and 10 minutes. I figure I'd do it for another 10 or so minutes, maybe 20 minutes, and then we can wrap that up. I am, by the way, I'll tell you guys a little bit about what I'm working towards, or the content that I'm working towards producing in the next little while. I want to do my final review on the Iris paramotor. I want to do my final review on the AWOC 3. I want to do my final review on the Warp 2. I want to actually produce very high quality content reviews around those, which is why it's taken me a little bit of time. I don't want to rush reviews. I want to make sure I take a little bit of time for those. So those are kind of what I'm working towards. Also, I'm going to get that Mav Max and that PAP, and I'm going to make some content about that. What's for dinner? I actually already ate dinner. It was chicken and rice. I bet you weigh under 170. I don't, Mark, but I am working to get down to 165. That's my goal right now. 165, my fighting weight would be 155. I don't think I'd ever get down to 155 healthily, but I do want to get to 165. I do work out every single day, so I do carry some muscle mass, which adds quite a bit of the weight. Have you spent much time on a Speedster 3 or a Sirocco 3? John B. Is that John Blanting? Who is that? Who is John B? What's your last name, John B? I have probably spent 5 to probably 10 hours or so on a Sirocco 3. I've never flown the Speedster 3, John Buckley. Okay. But I have spent quite a bit of time on a Sirocco 3. I do quite like the Sirocco 3. I also like the Speedster 3. Speedster 3 is the same thing, just with a heavier material on the top side. And Mark, I would rather not see my weight on a scale. I showed up late. Did you give pointers on how to improve and make foot drags better? Quick summary, please. I could talk about foot drags if you wanted me to talk about foot drags. There was a post in the... there's Caleb. There was a post recently in the Facebook group about how to improve your foot drags, and I think the best thing that people can do to actually get better at foot drags is circles and S-turns. The reason being is the change in direction is going to make you're going to have to be much more precise on your altitude control as you change directions. So by starting little S-turns, you kind of make those foot drags a little bit harder. The first thing you want to do with a foot drag is you want to nail the stance, the posture, how to actually be in the foot drag. There's two ways. You can either have foot gliding across the ground like this, or you actually tuck and roll the foot so it's scraping across the side of the foot. The first way, there should be very little friction and resistance. That can get difficult depending on the surface because you'll kind of slide back and be leaning really far back. The second way, where you roll your foot, there's going to be more pull on you, which allows you to kind of lean forward. That can be a little bit more comfortable for the foot drag, but that resistance means you'll have to apply a little bit more throttle and add a little bit more of brake to kind of compensate for that additional resistance. Once you've gotten that kind of figured out, the next thing, like I mentioned, is to add those turns and make things a little bit more dynamic with those moments. And then, yeah, that's kind of how you get better with foot drags, if that makes sense. It's not a complicated maneuver. As long as you understand the throttle to brake management, then you should be just fine. I think one of the best things is the circles, because you go into the wind, then you go downwind. That changes things. Then you go through your wake. Then you go downwind again. Then you go through your wake going into the wind. So there's all of these variables that actually make circle foot drags really, really difficult. Because all of a sudden you hit complete sync where you have to hammer all the brakes and hit full throttle. And then you get all the lift and you have to throw your hands up and dump the throttle, all while keeping your foot on the ground. That is probably the best way to master foot drags, is to do a bunch of circle foot drags. But don't do circle foot drags on surfaces that you're not willing to land on. Let's see. Looking to upgrade, and it's at the top of my list at the moment. I would say that the Sirocco 3 is a great option. I actually sell a lot of Sirocco 3s. If you're looking to order a wing, let me know. I'd happily help. Lost over 20 pounds. It's going to be interesting to see the climb rate on my Atom 80. I am excited for you. What cameras do you use to film your videos? Also your live video. What editing software? Looking to film and edit, not in paramotor, but something familiar. For filming, I have a few things. I actually just got a nice camera. For filming, I have two GoPros, a Insta360 X3, and a Sony a7R Mark II. Those are my cameras. For editing, and my iPhone 14 Plus Pro Max Edition thing, whatever it is. And then for editing, I use Pinnacle Studios 25, I believe. Let me see. Pinnacle Studio, I think it's 25, which is just an editing software. Can't go wrong with any editing software. But the thing with editing software is once you learn one, you really don't want to go learn another. So find the one that you think is the best, which is probably, what's it called? Adobe's Premiere. I think Premiere, whatever it is probably the best editing software. Find one, learn that one, and then don't switch. Complete noob here. How much maintenance is required on paramotor, oil, piston rings, etc.? How long do the motors last, and so on? There is not a whole lot of maintenance on a paramotor. I would say it depends, because there is like the 150 hours kit that you should really kind of rip it apart and clean out. Relatively speaking, there's very little maintenance on a paramotor, so much so that I don't even really know how to do all of those maintenance things. I just never really get to the point where I have a motor long enough to need to do those. Lifespan of a motor is somewhere between 300 and 600 hours, depending on how you take care of it. You know, you can probably get 600 hours out of a motor if you're gentle on it. That means you're not flying full throttle all the time. That means you're not just like getting it real hot and getting it cold and getting it real hot and running it full throttle the whole time. I expect my motors to make it about 500 hours. Can you go too high during a wing over? I mean, could you lose energy and fall into the wing, or is it impossible on big wing overs? It is totally possible on big wing overs, and it's definitely the biggest risk with big wing overs. David B, I would say paramotors are relatively easy, relatively low maintenance, and they're easy to work on. Wing overs, it's all about the energy. You can definitely screw up the energy and go light on them. You definitely can screw up the energy and go light on a barrel roll as well. Normally, the only time that happens is if you enter after the gate, right? So the way that we think of it is it's kind of like an arc. You're building energy, you're diving at the ground, you're building, you pass the gate, which is this bottom where you're flying flat and level, and then you start to go up. As you start to go up, you start burning energy. Burn. And there reaches a certain up point where you won't have enough energy to actually carry it all the way around. Now that is going to be different for each pilot based on their weight, the altitude that they're flying at, the density, altitude of the day, the wing they're on, the size wing, the motor they have, how it's performing that day, the size of the prop, everything's going to change that, right? A power loop is a pilot has enough energy that they can just go straight over top, so it's possible. But if you're on a wing that's not as efficient and you're heavy and you're on a lighter powered motor, you might not be able to go all the way around once you reach this point. So then you go to pull into the wing over and you go light and you fall in, or you drop to the side of the wing, which is not good. That's not good. So when you're new to wing overs, when you're new to loops, when you're new to all of that stuff, you should always enter before you pass the gate. The gate, again, is flying flat and level. Once you've passed the gate and start going up, you've got to have timing correct. You've got to have the energy correct. You've got to have a lot of things. This, after that point, this is the danger zone. This is where things can go wrong. You've got to be good. Before you reach the gate, as we call it, this is your safe space. This is a safe zone. This is where you really won't be able to screw it up too bad. Because, if you're diving and you're right here and you pull right, you're already facing down. You're not technically going over the wing. So you're not putting yourself nearly at risk, or your risk level is significantly lower. As soon as you reach the gate, as you pull, you're now going to go over the wing, aka wing overing. A proper wing over, you pass the gate and start going up before you pull into it. But when you're new, when you're learning, it's best to enter before you reach the bottom, before you pass the gate, because you just lower that risk. And you can't really screw up the energy too much because you're not going to go over the wing, so there's not that risk of you going light and falling into it. Okay. Did that make sense? Jaron, probably said your name wrong. I'm super sorry, but did that wing over explanation make sense? I do, again, plan to make a video about all of this. Where I actually draw diagrams and stuff and have a paraglider little dummy thing like Clint mentioned. Let's see. What fly-ins are you going to for sure? I am going to Endless Foot Drag. That is on the calendar. Other than that, I'm not entirely sure. Like I mentioned earlier during this podcast / live Q&A, this year my time is dedicated very much so to the building of this business, to getting its feet on the ground, everything kind of figured out. I am not really spending a lot of time doing all of my personal fun play things because business takes first priority. So what I mean by that is that I won't be traveling across the country to all of the fun fly-ins. I'll be here training pilots because I should. And so sadly, the only fly-in I am currently planning to attend is the Endless Foot Drag. Let's see. So new curriculum for students. Asymmetrical collapse on first flight, followed by power loop on second flight. You forgot the infinity tumble on third flight. Do you miss flying those small Sky / Dominators versus new free rides? I imagine the brake pressure are much lighter nowadays. I do not miss flying those smaller wing Dominators. I don't miss anything about them necessarily. I am very happy with the new equipment that I am now flying on. You couldn't pay me to go back to the other stuff. I just wouldn't do it. I could explain why, but I've been really hesitant to say anything about that stuff. I've been really hesitant to come out with like a video about why I left, the reasonings, you know, my explanation. I don't necessarily want to do that. I know a lot of people have asked me, but I have said no every single time. So maybe I will. What do you guys think? Do you think I should make a video about all of that or not? My first reaction is I should not make a video about why I left and my thoughts on those pieces of equipment. Oh yeah, can't forget all those maneuvers that are critical for success in controlling your glider. Yeah, you can't forget, and you got to be able to infinity tumble on your third flight. I will tell you, for those of you that maybe don't know what we're talking about here, there's this guy on the internet who has been making these videos about how his students on their second flight at his school are doing full frontals and asymmetrical collapses because they need to know how to control their glider. And the community was pretty quick to tell him that that's definitely not a smart thing to do. I full-heartedly agree. I don't think on your second flight you should be taking asymmetrical collapses. But I will tell you, I think on your 50th flight, it's totally fair to be taking those asymmetrical collapses. I think on your 100th flight, it's totally fair to be taking those asymmetrical collapses. I will say that you could get to 50 flights at your school, and then sure, yeah, have the instructor walk you through those asymmetrical collapses. But when you're so new that you're so focused on like just flying in a straight line that you probably don't want to be adding that piece to it, I think it's a little premature to be doing so, and that's kind of what I'll say about that. Are you still putting hours on the Iris? Yes, it is still the unit that I grab when I go flying. It's sitting ready for me to go take it on a flight as soon as the weather clears up. I plan to fly it until the day that it is no longer mine. Whether I do end up selling it or not, my plan is to sell it, like I did mention earlier in this video, but I'm not entirely sure if that's going to happen or not. And by the way, that is by no means because I don't like the Iris. I am not in a position to have 5 paramotors. I just don't have the working capital to have 5 paramotors. Sadly, all the paramotors that I have also have to double as training units, and I would rather not use an Iris as a training unit. It just is so pretty and it's so nice. I don't want to put a student on it and then it be destroyed. So what has to happen is I need to either change paramotors to something that I want to put students onto, or just move that capital into something else. That's me just being transparent about the situation. No, not necessary. Okay, I agree. I don't think a video is necessary, which is why I have stayed away from making a video about that stuff. And they can't even land on their feet beforehand. He blacked me after I told him it's completely safe to kite the wing in that pole. Yeah, that guy is interesting. I just decided to stay away from him. He is not anyone I would like to associate with. That's all we'll say about that. By the way, I do really like my Iris. I do quite like the Iris. But in the pursuit of trying everything, I can't own all of the things at once, which is why I also had to sell quite a few wings, because I can't own all the wings at once, and I would like to try the wings. But we'll see. Maybe I won't end up selling it. Maybe I will. I don't know. Depends on how much I like my Mav Max, which I did buy for a school unit, by the way. The Mav Max is a school unit. Right now for school units, I have a Maverick, Mav Max, and a Limitless. Those are my 3 school units, and I would like to exchange my Iris for an additional school unit. Let's see. What are your thoughts about 2 versus 3 blade prop? The 3 blade prop looks cool. It sounds cool, but I don't think it really does anything to be worth the additional money. I thrust tested 2 blade, 3 blade, 4 blade in a 268 130, 268 reduction, Vitorazzi 185, 130 size, 2 blade, 3 blade, 4 blade. I believe that day we were getting 130 pounds of thrust on the 2 blade, like 133 pounds of thrust on the 3 blade, and 140 pounds of thrust on the 4 blade. This was years back at the prior company. I don't know how accurate that is in today's world, but those were the numbers that I recall seeing on the thrust tester the day that we tested those. So what that means to me is that the 2-blade is great. The 3-blade is only barely better than the 2-blade and probably not worth the slightly slower spin-up time and the higher cost. The 4-blade, the 4-blade E-prop is highly underrated. I just want you to know that the 4-blade E-prop is highly underrated because it does produce more power than a 2-blade. You can get a very, oh, and by the way, that same day we got about 140 pounds of thrust with the 140 prop. So the 140 versus 4-blade were very similar. So like if you're spinning a 125 or a 130 right now, consider getting a 4-blade because it does produce more power. Like you will get more power with a 4-blade prop. And I don't know why the industry has not adopted those more so. Probably because they're like $700. That's probably why more people fly them, but they do produce more power. Everyone in the community who knows anything about Dell completely understands at least part of the reason for you leaving. Very good. You get the 287 140 3-blade E-prop for the Mav Max. They don't make a 3-blade 140 287 as of right now, as far as I understand. Would you consider having an engine on the shelf for sale? So if a student blows his motor, he has the opportunity to stay flying. At some point, I would love to have all of the parts sitting on a shelf in my inventory. And I am working towards so. At the moment, no, I don't have an engine sitting on the shelf in case a student blows up an engine. The likelihood of somebody blowing their engine up is very small. If they do, we'll overnight an engine from Sky Sports USA. But at some point, I would love to have a shop here in Utah with everything. All the things in stock, everything sitting on the shelf ready to ship. I'm working towards that. I have all the props in stock at the moment, ready to ship that day or the next day. I've invested a little bit of money into shipping stuff and material to do so. I've got off-grid throttles now that I'm going to be having in stock as well, and I'm slowly going to work up to having everything in stock and available to ship that day or the next day, and slightly become more of that company as well. Let's see. What's the deal with prop tape? I like what Judson showed in his last race where he said you can't install it like the factory does. If you order a E-prop, make sure you order the E-prop from the factory with prop tape. From the factory with prop tape. E-props will install prop tape on the props for you if you're, for a dealer, right? So when I order props from E-props, I order them with prop tape installed. That does not change the thrust. That does not change how that prop performs. That is a very well placed, perfectly balanced prop tape. If you install the prop tape, you reduce the thrust of the prop. Okay, so next time you order a prop, an E-prop, make sure the E-prop has prop tape installed from the factory. You can put it on, but there's a high likelihood that the balance is slightly off and that it's going to produce slightly less power. If you order it from E-props themselves with prop tape, it does not reduce the power. That's a pro tip for you guys today. So anytime I order E-props, I always make sure that they have prop tape installed because it doesn't reduce the power and it increases the lifespan of that prop. So that's my thought on that. And I'm sure other people order it with E-prop installed. I'm not sure everybody does, but most people probably do. I do have most every E-prop in stock if you are looking. Let's see. What do you think about Tucker doing a back roll loop thing? A power loop? I think that's great. Good for Tucker. I was excited for him. They just released the 140 3-blade 287. Seen something that it's in stock at Sky Sports. What? Are we talking E-props or are we talking fast acceleration prop? Like, what were we talking here? I'm looking at their props. Hang on, everybody. Let's see. Moster 287 reduction. Oh, man. They might have it, but they don't have it in a 140. You lied to me. You lied to me. I don't think they have a 143 blade 287 yet. I don't think they have it. I considered a 4-blade, got two 2-blade props better because I have a full backup prop for the same cost. Yeah, you know, if money is no object, a 4-blade is great. Otherwise, you know, whatever. Overnight works too. My local aircraft shop helped install for free. It looks really good. Good. I will tell you on the Adventure Wingman, when Judson and I installed our own prop tape, it did kill our efficiency and our thrust. Do you ever do ski launches? Yeah, I do. I didn't have any ability or opportunity to this year, but I do enjoy doing that. I have not yet succeeded in doing so. I have tried, but I have not yet succeeded. But I'm going to do it one day. I have tried several times. Any experience with the ITV Piper coming from a SEMA Power? Would this be a good second wing? So I actually had an ITV Piper 18. I flew my ITV Piper for maybe 10 to 20 hours. And I think it's an okay wing. I think it's a decent intermediate glider. But it's not very efficient. It drinks fuel really fast. And if that's okay with you, then I think it's a good wing. Drinks fuel, it flies fast, it's harder to launch than I preferred. It's really doggy in its launch. But, you know, those are some of the characteristics. It cruises fast, it's fast as you accelerate it, burns fuel like none other, and it's hard to launch. That's my thoughts on the Piper. I don't have my Piper anymore, if that answers your question. I think if you're looking for a good second wing, I would consider something like maybe the Dudek Nucleon 4 or like a Sirocco 3. Those are probably a little bit better in my eyes wings to transition into coming off of a SEMA Power. It depends on how many hours you have on that SEMA Power and how many hours you have, because the Piper is a wing you can probably switch to at like 35 to 50 hours, somewhere in there. But yeah, Matthew, you should reach out to me. I would actually love to have a conversation with you about that Piper. I am a dealer for Piper. I do sell Pipers, and I did own a Piper, to give you a little bit of perspective. Let's see. I fly at the beach a lot. I use 3M clear tape for my prop. The sand will eat my props pretty quick. Definitely takes a bit to balance it properly, but I've had no issues. Good to hear. What are some of the most fuel-efficient wings that you've flown? Well, I would say I fly, at this point, I only fly like the top tier of wings, and they're all pretty efficient. I mean, the Warp 2 and the Warp 1 have been some of the most efficient wings I've ever flown. 180 on the SEMA Power. Are you 180 pounds or 180 hours? Because if it's 180 hours, you should really switch to like a Sirocco 3 or even like, I don't know if I want to say a Drift Air, but maybe yeah, okay. Yeah, you should switch to something like a Sirocco 3 or like a Drift Air. Like a Dudek Drift Air or an Ozone Sirocco 3 coming off of a SEMA Power. With 180 hours, like that's a lot of hours to have on a SEMA Power. The Piper would be, it's nowhere near as efficient as I would prefer for a intermediate pilot. And it's hard to launch. Those are the two things. Now, for some people, the Piper can be like a really, really, really awesome wing because it is fast and it's very divey. It dives. So if you want to like fly like a fighter jet where you're like diving at the ground all the time and like full throttle, then it's a super fun wing. But if you're looking for a little bit more efficiency, a little bit more energy, then I'm not a big fan of it. I most of the time when people are thinking about it like a Piper, I recommend a Sirocco 3 instead. I just think it's a better wing for most pilots. But yeah, I would recommend something. I probably would personally recommend something other than a Piper. Love the wing. Are you talking about the SEMA Power? Because if you love that SEMA Power, man, the whole world's about to change when you switch. What are the most fuel efficient wings you've flown? Like the Dudek Warp 2 and the Warp 1 are some of the most efficient wings I've ever flown, I would say. I think I already said that, but the Warp lineup is really, really efficient. And I think I've talked about paramotor efficiency before, because it's not just about glide slope. It's really about how far can you go for how much fuel you burn. But yeah. Looking for efficiency and some safety. Matthew, go for the Sirocco 3. The Sirocco 3 is extremely forgiving. It's extremely easy to use. That's a characteristic that I think people underestimate, is how easy a glider is to use, because if it's hard to use, you ultimately don't end up using it nearly as much as the easy to use wing. It's a very safe wing, and it's a very efficient wing, and it's a very fun wing. I would highly suggest the Sirocco 3. The Drift Air is kind of a step above said Sirocco 3. Is a little bit less forgiving, a little bit less easy to use. Probably not what I would recommend. I'd say go for that Sirocco 3. Moving from an Ozone 26-meter wing, what would be a great B wing for me? I weigh 170, have 90 flights now. What is your Ozone 26? Is it a Spider 3? And how many hours do you have? 26-meter wing, that would be great for me. I weigh 170, have 90 flights. You got to tell me how many hours you have there, Scott, and what wing you currently have. Because if you have a Spider 3, the next step would be something like a Sirocco 3. Unless you want to switch brands, then you could switch to something like a Dudek, like Nucleon, or Solo. But it depends on what wing you currently have. How much speed difference between Dudek Snake and Freeride? Not completely sure on that, to be honest with you. I haven't flown the Dudek Snake. I am not a fan of the Snake at all. I think fully sped up, I think fully accelerated, the Snake is probably ever so slightly faster. But I don't trust the Snake. Yeah, Matthew, happy to help in any way. Reach out to me if you want help ordering the wing or not, or if you have more questions, I'd be happy to help however possible. What is the best way to lose energy fast? Is doing a steep 360 the most efficient way? Well, there are two ways to burn energy. Number one, you can exit straight up, or number two, you can exit into a turn. The fastest way is probably to exit into a turn. The safer way is to exit into a turn, but exiting straight up is also okay. Can't wait to hear you on the Paramotor podcast, and I love your live shows, but I gotta go. Okay, see you later. 80 hours. What wing are you on now, Scott? I would say you're probably itching into the Sirocco 3 territory. If you're on a Spider 3, the best move would be to switch to a Sirocco 3. If you're not on a Spider 3, the move is probably to switch to a Spider 3. Because the Spider 3 is a B wing. The Sirocco 3 is C. But the whole rating system is more complex than I think people think. Do you guys understand how the EN certifications work? And how like the DHV certifications work? And then the other certification, which is called AFNOR Standard, that isn't even a thing anymore. Mojo. Scott, why are you on a Mojo for 80 hours, dude? I'm so sorry. Well, Scott, there's two things you could do, Scott. Number one, you could go for a big jump, which would be the Sirocco 3. I'd probably say it's a little bit quick. If you were 20 hours on a Mojo and like 60 hours on a Spider, then maybe you could do that jump to a Sirocco. But I think that Sirocco would be a bit of a jump for you. So there are now two options. You can go Spider 3, you can go Dudek Solo. The Spider 3 is going to be ever so slightly easier to launch. It's going to be a little bit more friendly for you. And it's still going to be very playful. It's that stupid easy to fly wing. The Solo is also easy, ever so slightly less easy than a Spider 3. Nothing is as easy as a Spider 3. But it's got probably just an itch of performance on that Spider 3. It's a little bit less forgiving. I'd probably say the Spider 3 is a little bit safer, but that I can't confirm. That would just be my hunch. So, Scott, I would probably recommend you get a Spider 3. I'd be happy to help you with that if you would like me to. I do sell wings, but if you would like to go somewhere else, it does not hurt my feelings. Let's see, I have 100 hours on a Spider 3 and 100 hours on a SEMA Power. I don't know if the Sirocco 3 is going to be enough. What do you mean by enough? Do you mean like fun enough? Because yeah, it is. The Sirocco 3 is fun, dude. I enjoy the Sirocco 3. I almost bought a Sirocco 3 instead of a Viper 5 back in August. Is there a risk to getting into a stall when you lose energy by climbing? Can you catch it every time with brake input? So if you're about to enter into a stall and you pull brake, you're actually going to increase your odds of entering into a stall. So if you enter straight up you know, you're asking what's the risk of going into a stall. There is risk. The farther weight you go up, the farther you do this on your wing, the closer you're going to get to stall point. If you pull brake as you're doing this, you're going to increase your risk of entering into a stall point. Now, hypothetically, hypothetically you can't, but I did watch Caleb do it last week. The risk when when you exit a wing over or whatever and you exit straight up, there isn't a lot of risk to it unless you have throttle applied. Like if you don't have throttle applied, I don't think you'll be able to stall it just going straight up unless you also pull brake. But if you have throttle applied and you exit straight up, yeah, you could stall it. You could twist up in those lines. You could go slack. You could do a whole lot of things. And you can't catch it with brake because brake will increase your odds of stalling it. 2 feet in a heartbeat. What do you mean 22 meter? I guess I forgot what we were talking about. I'm trying to see where I seen that 142 3 blade 268. I don't think they have it, or 287. I don't think they have one. Recently moved from 26 Mojo to a Luna 2 and love it. Love the Spider as well, but opted for the Luna 2 since it's a bit more fun. So Eric, the Luna 2 is a step above the Spider 3 and a step below the Sirocco 3. So if you flew a Spider 3 and a Luna 2, you probably prefer that Luna 2 because it's ever so slightly more fun. I do think Ozones are easier to launch than the BDG, especially the Luna 2. But it's still a very, very fun wing. I think most people, for most people, a Luna 2 is totally the most fun wing ever. Kanggook might have them. I think they got one from eBay, but I don't think anybody sells a 3-blade 140 287. They might sell a 3-blade 140 287. They might sell a 3-blade 268 140, but I don't think there's such a thing as a 2.87 reduction 140 3-blade prop. I don't think that exists yet. What's the max weight for a Dominator 23-meter wing? Boys, you're not near the max weight. You are just fine. I am not seeing it on the market from eProp's direct site. Yeah, I don't think it's a thing. Good to know. Thanks for the info. Agree with the launch. Glad to hear that you agree with the launch. But yeah, I think the Luna 2 is a great wing. Boaz, let me pull something up real quick. I'll see. I will see for you, Boaz, what the max weight is. On a small, is that what you said, Boaz? On a 23, yeah, so small. It is 120 kg is your max all-up weight, Boaz, on that wing. Somewhere around there. K2, let's see. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Technical info. Over here doing some investigation for you guys. Where is the info on a small? Takeoff weight in kg. Whoa, that's different. Takeoff weight for thermal flying. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now back to the questions. I'm back, guys. I'm back. Let's see. Still flying a Mojo, but consider the terrain I fly in instills more confidence with being so floaty. So the thing with the Mojo, guys, is the Mojo is so much harder to launch. like it's so much more doggy than a Sirocco, or excuse me, a Spider 3. A Spider 3 is so much easier to launch than a Mojo. Mojos are a big old pig. And they're like, there's like a scale of like A-class wings, right? And then it enters into B-class wings. And you can like make a wing kind of fall into like a high B or like a low B. Low B is, or low A and a high A. AKA like a hot A and like a really tame A. And like the Mojo is such a tame A wing that it's almost unusable. Or it's not unusable, but it's like so tame that it's just not any fun. And I think the Spider 3 is just a better fit for most people than a Mojo is. And it's really hard to launch. It's really doggy, and it's really slow, and it does not handle well. And I will tell you, speed is kind of safety at a certain point, because if you're a certain level of slow, you'll never be able to penetrate into the wind. So if you get hit with like a gust front and you can only go 20 miles an hour and the gust is 25, you're not going backwards. And so at a certain point, you do need a certain amount of speed, and sometimes more speed is safer. I don't know. I don't think a Mojo is a great wing for the end user in most cases. The only time I recommend a Mojo is if a pilot is notoriously known for poor judgment or is just really prone to making mistakes. That's usually when I recommend a Mojo. Let's see. DT props 140 adjustable pitch can be adjusted for the 287. DT. What do you mean by DT? DT. Not sure what you mean. I'm on a Parajet Maverick. Atom 80 has been great, but thinking I want to swap to the Moster for the extra power. My climb rate with the Atom 80 isn't the best. What's the best way to demo live Utah? Eric, if you're in the Utah area, please come try my Maverick with a 185. You're welcome to come fly that anytime. Best way to demo is to find somebody near you who has what it is that you would like to try. Motor demos are hard because motors are so expensive to ship that they don't, we don't want to just like pack up our motor to send it as a demo. Wings are easy because you can send wings in a super small box and send it relatively cheap, which is why you don't see a lot of motor demos, but you see a lot of wing demos. That makes sense. I've really been talking for almost 2 hours. Holy cow. Don't hit Mojo. All right, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about the Mojo talk. I just wish they had given the Mojo a little bit more performance. Because if the Mojo had ever so slightly more performance, it would actually make sense as a end user's wing. It could actually make sense to put people on a Mojo if it had ever so slightly more performance and was slightly easier to launch, because then you wouldn't be putting people on a Spider 3, which the Spider 3 is a really tame B. So see, they made a really tame A for the Mojo and then a really tame B for the Spider, which means the Spider ends up being a better end user product, but the Mojo is like so beginner. It just, yeah. Anyways, I'm done with the Mojo talk. But flying Alaska mountains and glaciers, it works well. We'll possibly get a new wing this summer if I can build up the money. I actually have a flying buddy. I have 2 flying buddies up in Alaska. Where are you in Alaska? Because Boaz lives up in Alaska and John lives up in Alaska. I'm sure they would love to have more flying friends. 2 feet and a heartbeat. What are you laughing at me for? What did I do? If you want the safety of a Mojo without the hate fly a Pegasus. Jin does make some good wings. Mojo needs some trim range, maybe locked out for beginners or a Universal 1.1. Universal is good. Solo is also good. Solo is a little hotter than the Universal is, though. And so if you're really new, the Solo can almost be a little bit too much. But the Universal is good, and the Universal has like a really freaking long trim range. But the Universal is old. Like, the Universal has been around for a while. When are they going to come out with a new Universal? You know what I mean? A new Universal, a 1.2 or a 2.1. However they decide they want to name it. I don't know. They like their points for some reason over there at Dudek. I don't know why, but they do. It do be what it do be sometimes. DT propeller. I've never heard of DT propeller. I don't know. Maybe I'm out of the loop. Out of the loop. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to wrap this up here in the next couple of minutes. So fire off your last questions while you have the chance. Otherwise, you might not get me on a live for another month because I'm starting classes. And when I have classes, I don't really have time to do a live stream, which is why I have not started a podcast, even though I would love to start a podcast. At Salton Sea, you may have seen it. Oh, very good. Okay. I might have. I don't know. I had to take in the brakes because there was not enough responsiveness at all. On the Mojo? Yeah, there's no responsiveness on the Mojo. Avery Flies. Best way to reach out to demoing Monster on a Maverick. Happy travels. Eric, if you're talking about me, send me an email, a text, or a call. My contact information is in every description of my video. You're more than welcome to contact me any way you would like to, and I will set up a way to get you that demo. If you're in the area, you're welcome to come join me when I go flying and fly the Maverick. I will need it for my training classes, but if I'm out there, there's no reason you can't join us and fly it. I just flew the Dominator after trying a bunch of A and B wings when you're flying 40 hours. Interested in hearing your thoughts if you can comment on the wing. Avery Flies. I actually saw your video about it. You shared some interesting points. I assume it was you. Otherwise, I'm speaking about someone else, and I don't mean to be speaking about someone else. But it does have some interesting flight characteristics. I would actually like to fly it again. I haven't flown a Dominator. I haven't flown a Dominator since August. I haven't flown a Dominator since August, so I don't want to comment too much, but I will tell you that it is a very slow wing. It is difficult to launch. It does not have a lot of flare authority on landing. It does not maneuver very well. It does not carry energy very well, but it is a very safe wing. It does move a lot in turbulence. It does have a little bit of a weird feel in the bumps. Like it almost feels like it's trying to give out on you. It's like a little frantic, I would say. But it is difficult to launch. It doesn't have a lot of flare authority on landing. It is not nearly as maneuverable. It is not fast. That's probably the quickest way. But it is available. I found it hard to launch and kind of rocky on the yaw when it trimmed in. Yeah, so pretty much exactly what I just said. And Avery, the only reason why I saw it is because John sent it to me. I hope you're not mad at John for it, but he did want to send it to me, and then we chatted about it after. Would I see or feel the difference between a 125 Helix and a 130 on an Atom 80? Not really, Matthew. The difference between a 125 and a 130 is pretty small. It's there, but it's small. A better thing would be to go to a 134 blade. You'll definitely notice the difference between a 125 Helix to a 134 blade. 125 two-blade to 134 blade. A Dominator XX is very fast. Sure. They make fixed and variable pitch props. Very cool. Somebody needs to send me information on these DT propellers. Let me look it up real quick. DT propeller baromotor. I spelled it wrong. Carbon and wood props. Those things are POS. Pfft, just kidding. DT propeller. Okay, I'll look up those in a little while. That's fine about the video. It was John's wing. Glad somebody saw it. Goes live in 2 weeks. Sweet. Sweet, sweet, sweet. Yeah, I actually am going to try and fly one again. One as an Dominator again here soon. Maybe next month. But I have no interest in trying one, to be honest with you. Well, look at this place. DT propellers. I'm going to have to look into those things. I went from 125 top 80 to a 144 202, and it is something else. I'll never go back to an 80. Yeah, man, like 80s are really hard if you're a heavier guy or you're used to more power. As soon as you touch more power, man, it's really hard to go back to an 80. I've only ever flown an Atom 80 once. Excuse me, twice. And that was enough for me. Whatever happened to the light up propeller guy? The light up propeller guy? Not entirely sure. Not entirely sure. Rocket ship of a difference. Oh yeah. Wood is garbage. Check out my video on Matty H. Okay. Yeah, wood is absolutely POS. Carbon fiber single hoop paramotor cape. Wow, this place is doing all sorts of things. Let's see. Thoughts on a Spider 3 versus Speedster 3. Tempted to buy used local wings from some friends. Not sure if the Speedster is too big of a jump. Want to keep up with other friends flying XC wings. Speedster would probably be able to keep up with them. It depends on what XC wings they're flying. Speedster versus Sirocco, or excuse me, Spider versus Speedster, they are the same wing. The only difference between the two wings is that the outer piece, the top side of the Speedster 3 is made of thicker material to last longer. So what that means is you're going to have slightly harder launches, and hypothetically, you're going to have slightly less maneuverability. If you took the two up side by side, I doubt you'd really notice a difference on either of those two categories. But that is claimed to be the difference between the two. APCO EZ-R, you should be able to keep up with a Speedster 3. They are a relatively quick wing and can keep up with most things. I'm not entirely sure on how fast the APCO EZ-R is, and it does depend on the size of the Spider and the Sirocco and your loading compared to their loading. Let's see. I ran a 125 Woody on a top 80, burned 1.7 gal per hour, went to an OG 125 E-props, dropped to 1 gallon per hour. Wood is trash. That new Viper XC looks pretty cool. It's really cool. You know what would be really, really cool is like a Spider 3 with winglets. Because the winglets, dude, the winglets were really, really freaking good. Avery, consider a solo and or a universal 1.1. I'd probably say you're at the solo part more so than you are at a universal one. But the solo is a pretty quick wing and will be able to keep up with most everything. And I don't think you would struggle too much launching them. But yeah, consider those wings, I would say. If you find a screaming deal on a Spider 3 or a Speedster 3, I'd snatch it. Let's see. Would you rather fly in Egypt or Norway? Probably Norway, to be honest with you. I am trying to go to Iceland this year, but we'll see if I make it happen. We have 2024 training dates available. I want to train with you, but timing is not good right now. I don't have my 2024 training dates. I probably won't have those until around October time. Ozone is definitely rocking it with implementing the winglet technology. I will say winglets are nothing new, but they are bringing it to the paramotor world, which is cool. And I think it's, for most people, dude, the winglets are really freaking awesome. All the speed is in the bar with the solo. Interesting. But there is speed. All the speed in the universal is in the trim. The 18 centimeter long trims, I believe. Yeah, there's a bunch of options. It just it depends on how fast their friends are and what trade-offs you want to make, because every wing and is going to have trade-offs. That's ultimately what you're going to find. As I've flown everything, motor and wing, I've realized everything is just a trade-off. You get something with one, you give up something with the other. So you get something and you give something every single time. That's just the reality. It's 24 centimeters long. Holy cow. When the weather is trash, how do you decide if it's flyable? What are your warning signs when already in the air? Well, if you're already in the air, you should look. Okay, so two questions. How do you decide if it's flyable? Because that's before you're flying. Then what are your warning signs when in the air? Okay, so two different questions. How do I decide if it's flyable? Well, first thing I do is I look outside. If it's raining, I'd probably say no. If it's big, dark, scary skies, I'd probably say no. If there are Virga, big, dark, scary clouds nearby, within 50 to 100 miles, I'd probably say no here in Utah. The weather is relatively unforgiving here. If there's something going on nearby, you're going to experience it relatively soon. If I'm at the beach, that's a different story. Okay, if it's nice and sunny, that's good. But it depends on if it's really windy or not, right? So then you wander down this path. First, I look and I see if the sky is inviting or not. If the sky is inviting, okay, so I go to the next step. You know, I check the radar, I see if there's anything in the activity. Then I check the projected wind. I want to know not just the wind now, but what is the wind projected to be as the day goes on. I don't want to get caught in high winds, okay? After I've done all of those things, I'll then proceed to go to the field if everything looks good. When I get to the field, I'll actually have feet on the ground, see what the wind is like, see what the weather is like again, all of those things. If it still looks good, then I'll go. If I'm in the air, my warning signs. Is there a big, dark, scary cloud? I mean, that's really the simplest thing. Is there a big, dark, scary cloud? You should know if something is projected to come your way. Nothing is sudden. Nothing is out of the blue. Weather is relatively predictable. If there is a big storm cell 100 miles away coming towards you, at some point it's going to get to you. It's not sudden. It's not out of the blue. You just didn't check to see if it was there. And so to me, it's knowing what's going on around you and what's expected to happen as the day goes on. If I'm flying and it all of a sudden starts getting really bumpy, that's usually a warning sign. And I'm not in rotor. So when I hit turbulence, there's a few things. First thing I do is ask myself, is this a thermal? is this rotor or is this something else? I'll know if it's rotor. It's usually question number one, right? If I'm flying near an object, then it could be rotor. So what was the wind direction? If I'm not flying near an object, then it's probably not rotor. Then the second one is it a thermal? Is it midday, morning, afternoon? What is it? If it's morning or late evening, it's probably not a thermal. Then you have the third one, which is some other variable like wind shear or gust front or something like that. If it is that, I am going to find a way to land relatively soon. I've said relatively several times, but I'm going to try and find a way to land. If it progressively gets worse, I'm going to land right there. And so when I was on the Adventure Wingman, he talked about all the sketchy things on the Adventure Wingman. Yeah, so we were flying and we got hit with something that was nasty. Okay. Well, I'm going to land over there. That was my saying. Like, as soon as we got hit with it, I was like, there's my target point. I'll get there. It progressively got worse. It progressively got worse. I took those 3 collapses. I go, I'm not going to make it there. I'm going to land right there now. And then I landed 10 seconds after those collapses. So if it's something that's building, like if things are progressively getting worse, that's a pretty big red flag. I'm probably going to land like right then. But if it was just a short little blip, I might consider landing depending on how bad it is, depending on what the sky is doing, depending on where I am. You know, there's a lot of variables to those kind of things. But that's kind of my thought process. I go into a little bit more depth at my ground school, and there's a lot of you guys that are asking for my ground manual thing here. But we will we'll get to that here soon. I'll get to you all very soon. Let's see. Sorry, I'm doing 2 things at the same time. What was the next question? Trim setting warp 2 nil wind forward versus reverse launch 6 to 10. I usually launch at about 6 or 7 on my warp 2. That's kind of been the trim setting that I find to be the best for launching. I am a trims out kind of guy. What do you use? 6 or 7? Unless they've patented it, however, there's always ways to do something similar. Not entirely sure what you guys are talking about. I see the next tech push for major wing brands, the Moustache braking system. I don't. I think the Moustache is great, but I don't think we're going to see it get adapted into the paramotor world. The Moustache looks exactly like a Kite Surfer Speed 3 Bridle, sure. What about the sketchy, foothills of North Carolina, looking for wind speeds of less than 7 and direction remain consistent over 30 minutes. Look for soaring birds, fluffy clouds, indicators. I mean, there's a big difference between like what am I looking for in the middle of the day and what am I looking for in the morning and evenings. Got any demos available? Yes, I do. Scott, what wing are you looking for? You got to tell me what wing you're looking for there, Scott. As a dealer for pretty much every brand of wing and motor, happy to help you get demos and or sell you wings and motors if you're looking. I also have props available and in stock, shipping same day, next day, and throttled. Looking to build this thing up into quite a business, trying to get everything and help as many people as possible. That is ultimately my end goal. All right, well, we are past 7 o'clock. That marks 2 hours and 2 minutes, or 4 minutes, excuse me. Viper XC 20 to 22. I think I do. Scott, let me check on that, and I can get back to you. Scott, do you mind sending me an email, a text, or a Facebook message? Contact me in some way, and I'll let you know here in a day or two what I have on demos. Does that sound good, Scott? John Jones. Trevor, what should I be setting my trims to for takeoff, then flying on the wing you sold me 18 months ago, size large? John, set your wings to trimmed out for launch, trimmed in for everything else. You will launch trimmed out, and you will land trimmed in, fly trimmed in. Not neutral. There is no such thing as neutral on that wing. John, again, launch trimmed out, fly trimmed in. 2 feet and a heartbeat. You're doing great. Thanks. There's still 40 of you watching. I am honored that 40 of you are choosing to spend your Friday evening with me. Okay, last questions. Throw them out there. I'm going to peace out of here if there aren't any more. I might do this again somewhere in the middle of April is kind of where I'm shooting, but it depends. And I do want to do a podcast thing. I've got to figure that out because I want to interview more people. Favorite throttle, Off Grid Aviation, no doubt. Everyone's been saying neutral. Yeah, John, launch it trims out. Fly it trims in. Land it trims in. Yeah, the Avery, the off-grid is by far my favorite throttle. I have, for a little bit of perspective, I have the off-grid. I also have the Iris no BS throttle. I pick the off-grid every single time. Not that I don't like the Iris no BS throttle, but if I was to pick, I'm going to pick the off-grid throttle. It fits my hand better. It feels more comfortable. I prefer it. The cruise control system, in my eyes, is significantly better as well as safer. So that's kind of the thing that I would go for. Vitarazi Moster with EFI win. They are claiming next year, but that's what they claimed 4 years ago. I love off-grid too. Just wondering if was missing anything else. You know, I will say the one throttle that never got enough love was the throttle. The throttle was surprisingly good. I actually enjoyed flying the throttle. Now, the problem with the throttle is that when you launch, you put the A's in your thumbs, right? So you had to lift, then drop the A's, then find the throttle, then press the throttle. It never worked for trikes, or it didn't work very well for trikes, I would say. But the throttle was actually a pretty good throttle because it left all 4 fingers open. I liked. Well, I'd be curious to see if I'd like it in today's world now that I fly different throttles than I used to fly when I flew the throttle. But that was something that I would come up with. You tried the new clutch design Iris prop plate. The new clutch design Iris prop plate. I have the new Iris prop plate, the meta one. If that's what you're asking. SkyTap Angel, as good as the flat top? No, it's the Walmart knockoff of the flat top. But I would not suggest either of those 2 units. I would highly suggest against them. Paramotors need ignition mapping as much as they need EFI. Well, I mean, we're getting into a lot of things. I mean, they were pretty good as they are now, if we're honest. I mean, yeah, there's some things that could be improved, but they've been working on this whole EFI thing, man, since like 2019, like before 2019, like 2015, I'm sure. Because I remember in 2019, it's called the Quickie Prop Hub there, Adler, EJ Adler. I remember in 2019 they were talking about it, the whole EFI system, and I'm game for it. I'll buy like one of the first ones available, but I just don't think we've seen mass production to the point where it makes sense for them to do so yet. Maybe we're creeping up on it, but obviously if it hasn't happened yet. They've been trying for years. They keep saying next year. They've always said next year. Next year, we're going to have the EFI. And they have all these cool numbers for it and a little presentation for it, whatever. I would love to see it. I would love to see it. I have yet to see one. I think they talked about one coming out like this year, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. I don't know. They're always talking about one. Thoughts on Scout's self-adjusting pitch prop? Fantastic idea. Miro flew the Adventure Wingman with us. In fact, he is right there, I think. And his self-adjusting prop did not really change his efficiency. He was slightly more efficient, but because we were flying at much higher elevation, it didn't do nearly as much as it was doing when he was back at home at sea level. So I think he's made some changes since then. I think he knew what he needed to tweak, and I think the final product will be fantastic. And I plan to own the final product. But I don't know. I'd love to see an updated video of his new version on a real-world test like he gave on the Adventure Wingman, which was super fun. So I'm excited for it. I think every little amount matters. But they're expensive. All right, I'm going to wrap it up, guys. I will see you all later. Thank you all for joining me on this great, good old Q&A. All 35 of you that have stuck around. Didn't even know I had 35 friends. They made a big push for EFI last year and announced they had a world championship. And then the hype just died right after. Oh, Weather Radar app, My Radar on the App Store. Thanks for your time. You bet, Avery. See you guys later. Adios. Peace out. Thank you guys for watching. Toodaloo. Bye. Bye. Bye.